Regular October 19th board meeting. And at this time, if you would stand for a moment of silence and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And now the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is review of the agenda, followed by item number 2, adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt as written.
Motion by Mr. Peardo,
Second.
second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 3, approval of minutes for September 21st, 2020 regular meeting, September 28th, 2020 working budget meeting, and October 12th, 2020 special meeting. Is there anything that needed to be changed in any of those?
Move to approve as written.
Motion by Mr. Peardo,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Do you have any public comments? No? Okay. All right, item number 4, consider renewal approval of the dual credit memorandum of agreement with Eastern Kentucky University and Clark County Schools. Paul Christie, David Bowen. I did not want to come in.
I guess this is just basically a renewal of this would be the second contract with EKU. We have contracts with BCTC and Morehead State.
Any change from previous year?
No.
Any questions, comments, anything?
Move to approve as written.
Motion by Mr. Peardo,
Second.
second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You tried to run.
Made it go pretty fast.
Hush, Scott. Item number 5, return to school hybrid AB plans. Principals.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with Mr. Bowen, and we'll ask if Ms. Lyons can go next, or Ms. Hopkins can go next. They have regional tournaments that they've got to get out to. So,
Okay. All right.
I think with the high school, one thing that when you look at the high school, you know, we have a very different schedule. Those of you that have a child there or had a child there understand that we operate on a quasi-college type schedule. Basically what we have devised going forward when we move into hybrid is basically a 4-period day. Kids will be in class for 95 minutes. They'll have 4 classes on the Monday and the Friday, and then the Tuesday, Thursday they would have 4. Which would consist of the 6th and 7th period to accommodate the kids that go to BCTC as well as EKU, and then also some of the kids that go to Morehead. So every class, there'll be 8 class periods. Each class period is actually 95 minutes, and they actually would have more time under that than what they would under a normal schedule rotating. So we're moving forward with that. You know, bathrooms basically all following all protocols. Going to alternate if you go, if you go down the hallway at the high school, in any one hallway there are 2 sets of restrooms, so we'll be flip-flopping restrooms every period to make sure they'll be sanitized. To follow that safeguard, when kids come in, it's going to be very different. When kids enter the building, they will be moved on down the hallways towards their first period classes because we're not going to be able to congregate. Breakfast will be served by carts, and they'll be able to eat in their classrooms. As of right now, based on projected enrollment numbers on the hybrid schedule, we will be able to accommodate kids in the cafeteria. If those numbers increase, then we will also have to probably start utilizing the auxiliary gym as a cafeteria. If you go in the high school right now, you'll see it's set up, different tables. There are folding tables very similar to what's here with 2 chairs, spaced 6 feet apart, all facing one direction. So it's quite different than what it normally is. I think we have a capacity of about 160, somewhere close to 160 students per lunch. We'll still operate on the 4 lunch periods. The big thing, I think, with when we're moving forward, we're probably, if you look at most high schools right now that are engaged in hybrid or that are back, are somewhere around 40% online. Some are actually, a couple of schools I've talked to back east are actually more like 30% in person. Their online numbers are a lot larger. We are anticipating probably 33%, roughly a third of our kids remain online. Our goal is to utilize Wednesdays under the hybrid plan to focus nothing on virtual, as well as for teachers to have opportunities to meet individuals and students during the day, schedule time for bringing kids that need individual one-on-one help, as well as to meet with parents. If you want to call it, use the term office hours or whatever, they'll be there to provide assistance. So that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, we have probably a 3-page plan that details everything out that will be sent home to parents, that outlines the school day. It's very, very, as close to normal as it can be, but it's not going to be normal. I think probably when kids come in and they understand what it is, they're probably going to have a little different take on school. Unfortunately, that is what it is. I had a parent email me today, saying, when's it going to be back to normal? And I said, no clue. We can only hope at some point it does get back to normal. But that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at. Again, like I said, it's a 4 95-minute classes. So there's 8 periods, 4 and 4. And that allows us to accommodate our schedule the way it is, plus deal with all the dual credit students.
When they do in the cafeteria, are they gonna be doing assigned seats, or how are you doing your?
They will be assigned seats, and they're all facing one direction, facing the entranceway. So that's the only way we can do the tracking, to be able to track. So the first day you go in, that's going to be the seat that you get for a while.
Mr. Bowen, what's your communication plan? How are you getting this out to parents? And
We're getting ready to roll. We will release it through an Infinite Campus Blitz, through the messenger service on it, email, as well as a all call. And then we'll utilize all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that through smoke signals.
you'll let parents know that any of those avenues are open so that they know that as well. And Mr. Christie, I just want you to think about, I'd kind of like to know what the district plan is of what will happen if we have cases and things like that. If you can just address, instead of every principal address now, I'd just like for Mr. Christie to maybe address that at the end, if we do have cases and how that's going to be handled.
Individual cases at the schools or?
Yeah, just how you're going to get that communication, how you're going to communicate out to parents or whatever with that, however that goes right there.
When you are switching classes, how is that gonna work?
Well, the luxury for us is when you take the size of our building, if you want to call it a luxury, when we're about 600, it's probably going to seem like the building is empty. So on 5 hallways, you're probably not going to have more than roughly 100 kids, 80 to 100 kids on a hallway. So it's the typical change of classes is going to be as normal, but because we're doing the 95-minute blocks, we're also going to build in rotating breaks if they can take a break. If the weather is nice, we've talked with teachers, they may take 5 minutes to take them outside, space them out a little bit where you can take a mask break. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do a mask break in the building or in the hallway or anything, but if the weather's nice, they'll probably take them outside for a few minutes just to get a little bit of some fresh air. Because I do think it's going to be very hard to go for 95 minutes, but that's the best option we have. The one thing we are focused on, and probably might be a little bit different, trying to look towards the future. If you realize we've not been in school since March, there are going to be astronomical gaps achievement. That's going to be felt for years down the road. You know, the high school probably is the way it always goes, is at the end, so those gaps are going to grow and grow and grow until we get there. But we've got to try to address some of them, because with the recent release from KDE, it seems like ACT is not going to go away. They're still planning to do ACT testing in March, which is probably good for those kids, you know, for a lot of the kids. But we still got to do our part to try to help them get prepared the best we can. But like I said, the gaps are huge.
You're going to incorporate like the hygiene in your classes, talk to kids about masks, social distancing, washing your hands. I don't know if you're, you know, I'm not sure on high school level about how you go about making sure they go in there and wash their hands on different times, or if you're going to talk about those things, or give opportunities for those type of things. I think there's a good way we could educate our community a lot just through doing some of those type of things too. Do you have signs in your building as well that says those things? So.
We do,
Okay.
and I think one of the things that we're trying to build in, and I relied a lot with, I've been meeting with the content leads, all our content department leads, and kind of empowering them to work with their teachers, because we're going to have reduced kids in the building, in the hallways, so we're looking to build those breaks in somewhere through those 95-minute classes where they can actually take the 10 to 12 kids they probably going to have in class, maybe 14 kids, out, space them out, let them go into the restroom, use the restroom, rather than hopefully trying to use them in between classes.
Yeah.
You know, I do have, Leanne does a great job out there. Most of you know her, but she does a phenomenal job, takes pride in her job. But, you know, she's committing to unlocking a set. Like someone asked me this morning, so what set we're going to go to? I said, well, it's going to be propped up with food. I said at the end of first period, she's going to go prop the second set open on that hallway, and go in the first one, lock the door, and clean it. And then she's going to take that on herself to keep going back and forth on each hallway to make sure those restrooms are sanitized each period.
Mr. Bowen, I'll probably be a broken record by the time we get to the end of it. But my hope is that as you all roll the schedule out and then get better with it, get more used to it, that at some point in time in the future, that you all can look at, and our other schools also, when it's safe to be able to incorporate Wednesdays back in, that we try to bring Wednesdays back in and have more kids get in-person instruction, because I think in-person instruction is the best. Probably doesn't make sense to try to force that at the beginning, but that certainly was a hope of mine to be able to bring Wednesdays back. Hardin County, they started out on a hybrid schedule, and they're coming back here after their fall break, incorporating Wednesdays in that they didn't have. So I'll just put that out as a hope when it's safe to be able to do that. I don't know how practical it's going to be. It might even vary school by school whether it's practical or not. And my other hope is if we're going to have just essentially 33% of the student body in there, I think the 6-foot spacing probably is not going to be an issue. So I hope we could also have some flexibility, this is more on a district level, on when people are locked in on the virtual choice. You know, they might be afraid right now and choose virtual, but a month from now say, golly gee, I sure wish I could get back in school. And I'm hoping with the capacities being on a hybrid schedule that we can have some flexibilities and be able to, bring kids back in and not be so hard and fast on that rule. But those are more district comments, but since you're going to be heading out, I want to go ahead and share that with you.
I think
while you're here.
and I'll say this, I think the goal for all my teachers, or I won't say all, but for the vast majority of our teachers, is they hope to get to the point where we can be back 5 days a week. Because it is hard. It's hard to teach. It's going to be hard to teach no matter which avenue we go down. That's a given. I think our teachers worry about our kids a lot. We do a lot with, trying to choose my words wisely here, but I think we do a lot for the social and emotional. We put a lot of resources into that. And some of those kids probably are struggling. I mean, they really are. I applaud, I've got 3 phenomenal people out there, social workers who actually go out. They've been going out all summer. They've never stopped. They know, they really know the kids they work with. But I think, ultimately, I think I agree with you. I think in the end, that's our goal. Hopefully come springtime, maybe we can get back, to that point. It's just, it's gonna take some trial and effort. I think the one thing, and I would encourage, just standing here as the principal, I would encourage whatever decision, as we go forward, maybe we can hang on and try this to get through Christmas. Give us some time to see where we get, and then give us some leeway, prep time if we think we're gonna move on second semester into a different format. Just give us some prep time, because we always have to adjust. We've got to adjust that schedule. For me, it's not as simple for me as it is for the others, because we're dictated by certifications, classes, credits, and it's a whole lot. It's a different dynamic and movement. But I do agree with you. I think that's our goal. Ultimately, hopefully in springtime we can get there. Only God knows, I guess, what's going to happen, but it's the faith we have.
Thank you. You said, I think you mentioned 33% online.
Roughly, I think that's where we'll be. I don't think we're quite there right now, but judging by what I see the other high schools and people I talk to in my circles, that's pretty much where they're at.
Can you kind of give us an idea on that, the percentage, whatever it is, whatever they end up being, those students, what will their week look like?
We're going to try to devote Wednesdays nothing to them for the most part, unless there's a kid that has to come in, we need to bring in, we will. But our goal is to utilize Wednesdays to address the kids that are on hybrid, to try to meet with them online, face-to-face, do some online stuff with them. Now, that's not going to reach all of them, because there's still that population we know that does not have internet that we've got to try to deal with, to get some printed material to, get some packets to. But, they're probably going to get one day of live, or not, I'll say live, but online instruction. And then the other 4 days is probably going to be, supplemental type material, extensions of that one day lesson. Ideally, it'd be nice if it could mirror what the other two groups are doing, but I don't know right now that we can mirror it exactly.
Well, that's kind of where I'm coming from, is how, it doesn't sound like we can assure the parents and the virtual students the same quality and same quantity of instruction that the A and B students will be getting.
I don't think you can replace the face-to-face.
But you're taking, and I know there's no easy answers to this, but the A and B students, I look at this as three groups: A group, B group, virtual.
Yes.
So the virtual group's gonna have access to teachers one day a week. The A students, the A group, B group's going to access teachers twice a week.
Well, in my situation, it'll be once. Each group will have it once.
You'll
because
have
we're
four
doing-
classes
Four
on
classes
Monday
on
and
Monday.
four
Okay, that's
classes
right.
on
So we're doing
Tuesday.
95-minute blocks, yeah.
And I'm sure you looked at different ways of doing that. Is that, I guess, is that the most equitable way that you can see? Because I've talked to some teachers and they look at Wednesdays as, so the teachers I've talked to is not only reaching those virtual students, but also making sure that all their students in A group, B group, and reaching out to them and making sure, that they're doing their assignments as well. And it just seems, it's a huge task. I know it's a huge task. And it's, and I mentioned this at this board meeting before. I'm not a hybrid fan, because of these gaps, and I think there will be, like you mentioned earlier, the achievement gaps are gonna be there. I just worry about those 30% as well of virtual students. They don't seem to be able to will have the access that the in-person students will have. Or if they have questions during the week, they're only gonna have access on Wednesdays to ask a teacher. Is that correct?
Well, no, they'll have access through email and stuff like that.
But not talk to someone.
But they're probably, I won't say 100% that they'll be able to talk to someone, face to face, probably not until Wednesday. Now there could be, when we do the 4x4, teachers are gonna have a planning period somewhere. So some teachers could have planning periods on Monday and Friday, or some on Tuesday and Thursday. So they'll be able to utilize those planning periods too, to do some of that. Depending on what the period is, then it could be. But yes, it could be. I won't say that it will be a lot, but I would think so. I think the one thing that, when I look at it, you're very correct, and there's three groupings. It's like we were gonna start out on a B day, then we're gonna go to an A day, then we go to 2 days of B. So in the natural progression of things, fortunately, the way the calendar works out, your B group's kind of gonna be, it equalizes out at Thanksgiving. All right, then you come back, you have 3 weeks to, in essence, it all kind of, those groups equalize out. Now, the others, the virtual, is the piece of the puzzle we're still working on. And that's why I think the Wednesdays are the crucial piece for that. It's the only way I know that we can make it work. It's just,
Is there any opportunity for virtual students to, say, drop in on a class during even if it's an A day or a B day?
I think if they're live, yeah, they can. I think they could. We just have to be very careful. We're very cautious and trying to make sure the protocols, if I'm teaching, it's one thing. If it's on me, as long as it's on me presenting the lesson, then I think it's perfectly fine. But we just gotta make sure it doesn't pick up the audience of the other students, just for, there's some issues,
okay.
confidentiality issues and stuff we gotta deal with. But as long as it's focused on the teacher, then yes, it's possible.
And when I said drop in,
Yeah,
virtual
I
drop
know
in,
what
yeah,
you-
yeah,
yeah.
you got that.
So, sort of following up on what comments have been made. If, let's say, the virtual number got down to, 10%, it would seem like we've got enough capacity in the high school that we could handle. And if we're on a hybrid schedule, and we could take advantage of what the hybrid schedule gives us, which is, an automatic 50% capacity, even if everybody wanted to come back. Is it feasible to try to really push to get the virtual number down to?
I think the big issue goes back to the 6 feet. Prior to, we went back and recalculated, went back and, made sure the measurements were correct. Prior to that, we had 79 rooms that were out of compliance based on the original. Right now, after recalculating, I still have 21. That's above capacity. Now, some of those I'm not worried about because they may be like one kid above capacity, and probably, honesty, it's probably going to work itself out in a day or two or 1 or 2 class times. Now, there are a couple others that are not, that are on our radar. The thing that's hurting us in a way is that we had planned, typically for the last few years, we've done some really large classes with success. Well, this happened to be the year, guess what? We upped those numbers. So we've got the flex room is booked all 7, 8 periods right now with larger capacity classes that were originally holding 60 plus kids. So that, those classes are fine, but we still have classes that are like, for example, Bible literature. It's like the #1 class when it prints out, comes out all the time. That one's out of whack by like 6 kids. And I don't know how we're going to quite manage that. Probably utilize the library. She'll probably teach first period. I think it's a first period class. She'll probably teach in the library right now. But I think as the numbers, as you try to start moving kids back, we have to be cognizant of the numbers and understand if we're still dictating or still trying to follow 6 feet, because if we are, that's what hurts us. It's not, because I've tried to explain this 2 or 3 different times. For example, like if you're a math teacher, I can't go and just switch your classes over with Mr. Talby, who's teaching social studies, to balance numbers. I've got to find somebody that has that math class that same period. Well, you may be teaching geometry, Mr. Parado may be teaching algebra 2. It's just not quite as simple as moving kids by period. So then when we start looking at the schedule, then I affect not just that one class, but then I'm affecting potentially up to 6 to 7 other classes. So it's just like this dominoes that starts falling when you start trying to adjust. So I think we have to be, aware of that as we go forward. And I think ultimately, yes, I totally agree with you. Ultimately, that's where we need to be. It's just trying to figure out how to get there to make sure that we're managing all the logistics in the path.
Because I was going back to the mid-September numbers when they calculated the capacity at 1,147. and the building design capacity 2,067. So just to try to make it simple, if the capacity 2,067, if we're only going half the students are there at a time, then it seemed like from the, the macro level, that we ought to be able to hold 50% of the people,
Yes, from that level.
from the macro level. But you're saying on the individual level, it gets more challenging.
It does, when you start looking at individual courses. It would be equal, it would be fine if we could say that we all had an even distribution, but when we start looking at different classes, that distribution is not the same, because we're focused on trying to get kids the career certifications, which is a huge issue. I know Ms. Jameson's working hard right now to try to get those pieces in place for those kids, because a lot of those kids in the ATC are probably, this is gonna be their career, some of them. And we're really working hard, trying to help her to make sure that we can get those pieces in place to get those kids completed. But when you look at it as a whole and you see that number, yes, mathematically you think it's fine, but when you start drilling down into it and looking at the individual classes, because every class isn't the same, that's where you start having issues at the high school.
You'll have somewhat the same type issues at the elementary, in that you might not be classes, but your grade levels aren't all even. You've got a certain number that building will hold at the elementary level, but it's not equal among first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. You've got some grades that are larger, and the rooms are all the same, but some of your grades are larger. So you run into that somewhat at the elementary level, so just not on an individual class basis like it is at the high school, and somewhat like that at Campbell.
I thought the communication that's been sent out or planned on being sent out was, if you choose to stay virtual, then you need to commit to that for these next 9 weeks. And then, if you're in class and you choose to go backwards to virtual, that's a much easier way to move backwards than it is to move forward. So I think we ought to be careful on setting, how rumors go, right? Well, I can go back and forth. I think the communication's been sent out, hasn't it, where if you choose virtual, you need to stay virtual for those next 9 weeks.
It's been, we're trying to communicate, yes. Because I think it's critical. It's critical at all grade levels, but more so, we're still trying to issue credits. We've got to get credits done by Christmas, or get half credits now. We do have a population of kids that probably, we're also bound, if you don't by law, if you don't get 5 credits your senior year, you lose your keys money. You've got to stay to get that keys. Well, I've got kids who have the credits, but they're sticking with me for keys money. So we're trying to get out of the box second semester and open up more opportunities, so more of those kids can go ahead and go on to EKU, take more dual credit classes. And that will also help ultimately that bottom line number if those kids are taking advantage of those avenues. So yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces.
Well, certainly, you're right, Mr. Toffey. I believe the official publications that have been put out by district administration essentially tells people that they're locked in. But I'm just saying, my wish as a board member is that we'd have more flexibility as we go along with that, to be able to, as we can, perhaps relax that down the road, because I think in-person instruction is the best. So, but you're certainly correct. That's the official policy of the administration right now, and as far as I know, we haven't overturned that.
I think the one thing we got to remember too, I think the beauty of this is, because of the way our calendar is set up, when we start this, we have 32 days of instruction between now and Christmas. So it's not going to be as long as it has been coming into this. So it's going to be a shorter time frame to where we can move into the second semester to afford kids some opportunities to change.
You don't have to get into the weeds on this question, but do you feel comfortable in the, when kids arrive, the process of them arriving and the process of them leaving, as, those processes you'll put in place or will be putting in place, you feel like you've got that pretty much nailed down to?
I do. I
Okay.
think we have the most, I don't think safest is the word, but the most safe plan that we can put in place for that. That's what I keep telling the teachers, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to reiterate, keep hammering home social distancing. But you also got to keep in mind, I'm dealing with teenagers, you know, and yeah, they're probably gonna pass each other in the hallway. You know, yeah, they're gonna pass and they may stop and talk, so all we gotta do is say, talk, you know, keep it going, keep moving, keep going. So there's always gonna be instances, we just can't avoid that. But I feel confident with the plan we've got coming in, kids moving on through the building, dispersing. And then in the evening, we're looking, probably doing a couple minutes staggered release to where we'll probably try to push out the car riders or the parent pickups a little bit different than the bus riders, so they're not necessarily all crisscrossing there in front of the auxiliary gym per se. That way they're all ready to minimize some of that. Now, for like example, for our lunches, they're all coming from pre-assigned areas, so there's not gonna be crisscrossing the kids that way, which is the beauty of the way it is right now. Prior to that, it was an issue because we were having to use the auxiliary gym, and there were going to be crisscrossing. There was nothing stopping it. So as of right now, that's not a problem.
Hey, how's that new baseball field look?
Gorgeous. It's really nice. Spent a lot of time out there a week ago Friday, just sitting watching them put the sand down. So it's pretty neat.
Did they start on softball on the turf yet?
They're working on it.
They're ready to start within the next 3 days. They'll be ready to start. They're putting the infield on the baseball, finishing it up, and we'll get it done before they start the softball in the next 3 days.
You got any more questions for Mr. Bowman?
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Doing the best we can, so.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah. Hey, is somebody gonna sanitize that? I don't know where he's been.
Better.
What?
Hold up.
Well, who's gonna have to wipe it down afterwards, though?
Stormtrooper. Hey, I get no greater joy this entire year than getting to be associated with Phoenix Academy once again in my career. So Ms. Hoffman, I guess she heard the question and she threw this at me and said, "This is on you, big boy," and she ran out of here. Now, she's got some trophies she's got to give out at the volleyball tournament. So I told her to go and I would take this for her. Phoenix has got it kind of going right now. Their plan's not going to really change too much from what they're doing. When they bring students back in, they're going to basically have about the same numbers that are coming back in as to what they've been doing for the last several weeks. They've still got about, I believe it's 30 of their kids who are going to be staying with the distance learning virtual mode the entire time. They use Apex for that mode, so that's what they're using, the credit recovery, that type of thing. That's what the students, when they come in, all of them are assigned that. They're familiar with that. They have that as a class. So if they ever have to go back out, that's exactly what they're going to do. But I'll give you some details as to what certain aspects of that will look like. Arrival time, 8:15 to 8:50. Students arrive, if you've never been to Phoenix sometime, please stop out. It's a great place. Students arrive at the rear door. All students need to wear their appropriate mask. If they don't have one will be provided. Markers with 6 feet are spaced out on the floors. They have a thermal, iPad kiosk, and they're asked the standard COVID questions. They have to actually answer those correctly to be able to go to the physical search area. Once again, remember this is Phoenix Academy, so there are certain protocols because it's a judicial system. It's also a part judicial system as well. If a student has a temperature above 100.4, student will be moved to the quarantine area in the rec room, wait 3 to 4 minutes to be rescanned. If they have a temperature above 100.4, parents are called to come pick the students up at the back door of the building. Parents don't come in the building. Student will be scanned, searched with a private, non-invasive physical pat-down metal detector that is no different than what is done currently. A student will secure their cell phone and other devices in the locked cabinet as they usually do, collect point sheets from previous days, get breakfast, go through that process, spaced out 6 feet, and supervised with that. To be dismissed from the cafeteria to go directly to the classroom. At the end of the day, dismissal students will be dismissed from classrooms by bus number upon arrival. Staff will use radios to communicate when the buses are ready for loading. In the classroom, each classroom will be measured 6 feet apart by the desks. It will require the students to face forward in the same directions. Students will be assigned a specific desk to sit in every day. Markings will be on the floor as a reminder of areas that are 6 feet apart for instructions. Teachers will mark a 6-foot
distance around their desk. Students bring their Chromebooks to school every day. Direct instruction will be provided on an individual basis depending on student needs. Students and staff will remain masked while in classroom at all times, as per district directive. Sanitation, custodians will sanitize rooms each morning before the arrival of students and staff. Classrooms will be sanitized again at 12 o'clock when students go to lunch. 2 teachers, I won't mention their names, their classrooms will be sanitized again after lunch because that's where the groups go. Sanitation needed signs will be provided for teachers to place on desks where students have sat and where sanitation needs to occur. Cafeteria will be sanitized after each use. Bathrooms will be sanitized on a 2-hour schedule. And finally, in the cafeteria, students will enter and remain on 6-foot social distancing markers. Students will sit in 6-foot spaced seats. Tops of seats will be removed so students can only sit in designated seats. Supervision will monitor social distancing, and students will be re-scanned at thermal kiosks after leaving the cafeteria and before returning to classrooms. It's pretty much exactly how it's running right now. So they have their numbers, the vast majority of those. You'll have about half of them, if I looked at the numbers correctly, I think it's about half of the numbers on virtual. We'll call it virtual for all of those students who are going to stay at home and learn through the Apex. I believe it's about half that will come into the buildings. And for those, they have ample space. And if you've been into Phoenix, it's actually bigger than what you think it is from the outside. It's a little bit more of a spider web here to here to here, kind of like this building. People come in all the time, and by the time they leave, they go, I had no idea this building was as big as what it was. Phoenix kind of has elements of that too. They foster off a little bit, so you have a little bit of an opportunity to do that social distancing. So there shouldn't be a problem with that.
Do you know how many kids she has right now?
48-ish, I believe.
So if she got 48, 30 virtual,
Those were the numbers we were given.
I think we got 18 that are coming. What's the capacity of Phoenix Academy in terms of?
I don't have the sheet in front of me right now.
So where I'm headed to with it is, does Phoenix Academy have to be on an AV schedule, or with just 18 kids, can they be on essentially a 5-day week?
Even on the schedule that they're on right now, they're contacting every student every day. They're doing some virtual, they're doing a combination of both already, and they've been doing that since July. Every student is being there's home visits to every student. All these virtual kids are actually doing home visits to these kids also, in addition, if they're not coming in. But we're all, keep in mind, some of these folks are choosing to the virtual part. We're not mandating anybody to take virtual. These are because the parents have chosen for these kids to remain virtual. So to say that Phoenix is not going to have the virtual, I mean, that's just going to force some parents who want their child to remain virtually instructed right now, it's going to force them to come into schools. And that's just not where we've been at this point. These are folks who have chosen the virtual side of it. And that may be by a parent, or in some of the kids' cases that are over 18, maybe their choice, but it's a parent or guardian's choice.
Maybe I misunderstand what you're saying. I'm just focusing on the 18 people that are not virtual is.
You're saying everybody come in person to Phoenix.
Well, yeah,
All
I'm
18.
saying the 18 people,
Just all 18.
yeah, can they have 5 days a week?
Oh.
I didn't phrase it correctly, I
Okay,
apologize.
understand. I'm sorry, that's different. Well, that's something we need to talk with Ellen about, that possibility, but bear in mind that kind of her scheduling is kind of like David. They've got all these individual classes, and I'm sure that they're using, in these off hours, those folks are doing some virtual instruction too.
I'd hate to answer on behalf of her. I would see where you're coming
Yeah.
from, the number of teachers versus the number of students. Could they, in theory, come the 4 days a week or whatnot, or whatever the case may be? I'd hate to answer that for her because she may have a specific reason. And sometimes you get into the situation from a court order. This child is not allowed to be in the same room as this order, and they have to space them out differently. And there may be some issues with that with the room. So sometimes there's legal situations when it comes to Phoenix, and she would be better served to be able to answer that. But I do see where you're coming logistically.
I understand that too. I didn't when you first stated it, but I think, along with what he said, and some of these other teachers with the lower numbers of in-person, that gives more opportunity for these other 30 students that are all virtual. And those teachers, I would imagine that those teachers are being utilized for some of the virtual instruction too.
But given what you all done from our directive a month or so ago about trying to bring more kids in. I'd say there's probably enough flexibility there that, let's say of those 18 kids, you've got maybe the majority on an AB schedule. It could be that they might decide to bring some of those 18 in, and instead of 3 days a week, 3 days a week, and
She
you
has it
oversee
right
it.
now.
So you've got the flexibility to do that right now.
Yes, and they're doing some of that right now.
Okay, that's all, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hate these things. I smile at you guys all the time. You just, I know nobody can tell it, I just look, I'm staring at you here or something, so. Anybody else have any questions or anything? I do want to put a plug real fast while I'm up here for the elementaries. We're working on the virtual side of what that looks like. We want to make it as effective as we possibly can, kind of going back to your question there. We are working over the next several days. I'm hoping that we have that plan finalized to be as effective as we possibly can. One of the things with the 4 elementaries is we don't want to take the individuality away from each of the buildings, yet at the same time, we have to have a sense of uniformity with all 4 buildings. Sheer can't do one thing and Justice do something radically different. So with that, it takes a coordinated effort of everybody coming together, working together, taking a look at the individual student numbers, the teacher numbers, who's going to stay home, who's going to come in the buildings, what's that do with the capacity, the student capacity, with the teachers that we have in the building. And all of those things have to be considered for 4 buildings. So we are working every day, we're all meeting every single day coming in. We're talking about that, what's it look like, what are some ideas that we have. We're putting some things together. Ideally, we'll have something by middle of this week of what that's going to look like for the virtual learning students for the elementary. Worst case scenario, we'll have it at the end of the week to be able to roll out to parents, communicate to them exactly what that's going to look like so that they understand what that's going to be, because there'll be some slight changes as to what the virtual element will look like. Logistically, it has to be. So when we do, we'll get that rolled out to the parents so they understand, so those people who are choosing to stay on virtual understand what they're choosing to stay into. Those who are coming back, they understand what virtual is going to be as well. So we'll put that communication and make sure everybody's aware. But we're working to get that together to be as effective as we possibly can.
So will all 4, it sounds like all 4 elementary schools will mirror each other as close as possible?
Yes. They each have, everybody has individual populations. No 2 populations are alike. So they each have their individuality. But when it comes to the procedures, the instruction that's going to be offered, the approach that's going to be given, that's the uniformity that we're trying to work together, that we're bringing in, so that everybody's on the same page. And no matter where you're at across the district, that portion of it is something you can't say, Strode's giving me this, but Conkwright's not giving me this, or vice versa, and so forth. That's something that was important to all of us as we sat down, and we knew that moving forward, if we were going to have a complaint that came from that, that would be one of the biggest issues, is this one has this one has this one doesn't have this one. And so that's where we want to meet, get that uniformity as much as possible, and that's what we're working to come with.
So I guess I've got a question for you then.
Sure.
So are you looking at putting like a virtual teacher in each grade across the district, or what are you looking at as far as that goes?
There's several different types of conversations. Out of about 10 approaches that different places are doing across the state, we have narrowed it down to our top 4. Today, we pretty much took one of the options off the table. We have a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock to hem that down. I think we probably can come down with our number 1 by tomorrow, by the time we leave and principals go back to their buildings for students coming in. Worst case scenario, I think we can narrow it down to our top 2 options and continue to be able to go from there. That is of consideration to be able to do potentially.
That's one of the things we're looking at is hiring for this year out of the ESSER monies, additional staff members at each grade level to help with a virtual piece in addition to what the school's already doing. And that person would work with the virtual for all of us, maybe 2nd grade across the district, so that everybody's getting and seeing the same thing.
And you're thinking hiring a virtual teacher for each grade, not just elementary, but you're going up?
Well, we're just talking elementary right now, because that's not been something there's enough leeway in the scheduling that the high school, intermediate, and junior high have got some flexibility, but where the elementary doesn't. We're looking at grade levels, doing something there with them.
So if you do that, so basically the kids that have been on virtual at this time, they will be switching all new teachers, all new right now.
Correct. Most likely, they're gonna have to at least,
See,
there's gonna be some change that takes place with that, because the teachers that they're working with right now, they're gonna be focused solely with hybrid A and hybrid B. So there's gonna have to be, does it change the continuum of education? No. Will it change potentially with the teachers? Yes.
So how will that work if you have like a student that's up high, that's, you know, because you, and then you have a student that's down low, how are you, how's one teacher gonna have every kid across the district in that grade?
they do in the classrooms now, and we deal with that every day. That's what we do every day.
And when they come
Teachers
in,
don't get to pick and choose who comes in there, they take everybody that walks through the door, and we have to modify the instruction to meet the needs of every child that walks through the door.
it takes time, and it'll take a little bit of time, just like you did these teachers at the very beginning. They had
Well,
to
yeah, I
learn
get that, but I mean,
to know those students.
we're getting ready to start in November now, and these kids have been with these certain teachers, and now we're gonna be starting them completely over.
Well, and I don't know that they'll be starting completely over, and that's not to say that we do have someone bring in an additional person to work with the virtual, that the teachers in the building won't have any contact with those kids. I don't know.
Oh, no, they would have to still have, you know,
Those teachers are
contact
working
with
with the
them.
virtual teacher on the preparing of the lessons and some things. but-
There's some things, they're gonna be able to talk to them and have contact with them. That's what, one of the things that the Wednesdays also has, that it
Yeah.
affords and offers, is for those teachers who stay virtual, if that's the direction that we end up going. They're gonna be able to have that opportunity to talk to them, to discuss them. Hey, what are some strengths of this particular child? What are some areas to be able to take a look at? They're gonna be able to flesh some of that out for those. It's not just gonna be one of those, we cut it off here at the knees, you hand it over to here. There has to be, there needs to be a seamless transition as best as possible.
And those regular teachers, the virtual teachers will work and plan with the regular teachers too, the in-person teachers.
It just seems a little concerning for the virtual kids that we're just all of a sudden gonna switch them up right here.
It is not gonna be, there's nothing about this that's gonna be easy, and we're just doing the very, and one of the reasons why that we could look at you like some other districts have done and said, here's the plan. And one of the reasons why we're saying we're gonna be able to get it hopefully by midweek or the end of the week is we're gonna use that same key word, as we wanna be as effective as we possibly can with it and think of as much of this as we can.
I understand that, but I haven't heard anything that's going forward for the virtual kids. I mean, maybe I'm missing it, but I mean, like the questions that Bill's been asking and stuff like that, I haven't heard anything positive for virtual. It's like they're going to, it's like they're getting set over here and we're gonna go hybrid for those kids. Well, they're still there too, so are we gonna create a bigger gap for those kids that are staying virtual just because they can't come back or whatever the situation is for them?
No, our goal is not to do that, of course.
Well, I know that's not, I don't think that's your goal, but.
We're
I
gonna-
mean, that's my concern
We're gonna do
though,
everything
is the
we
more
can to
I'm
make
sitting
sure
here
that they have-
listening and I'm listening to, you know, the plan for hybrid and, you know, which I've only heard Bowling and Phoenix, which is, they've got good plans, but then we've still got this, especially at the high school, with Bowling talking about how many he's got on virtual. What are we gonna do with those?
That is the challenge when we offer a virtual side and we offer a hybrid side for them to come back in. When you offer both of those, that is the challenge that we're navigating right now. So that's what we're giving careful consideration to trying to think all of that through to provide the most equitable education that we can for whether you choose hybrid or whether you choose virtual.
So,
We're trying to do it in a way that we keep the teachers engaged with the students, whether it's virtual or it's hybrid. If you look at what some other districts are doing, they've taken a curriculum and they're pushing a curriculum out through the internet to the students, and there is no teacher interaction. You see that, we're seeing that in a lot of places. We're trying to avoid that. That's why we're taking longer on it. We're trying to work with teachers where there's some contact between the teachers and student, both in person and in virtual. And that's the difficulty.
I can tell you several counties, I won't mention my name, that's exactly how that they are doing that. They are assigning students, no matter what age that they are assigning them strictly to a virtual platform, and that's how that they are doing that. That's the one thing that we are trying to avoid. We're still trying to provide that live teacher to be able to work with them, provide that instruction, be that person for the nurturing aspect, because when you're talking about elementary, it's more than just the A's and AB's, C's and 1, 2, 3s and that type of thing. We're developing them as people, and that's what we want to make sure that we have in place.
Well, and then we also have the other aspect of, we've still got K through 2 that's still gotta have packets, and, I mean, where do they fit in the equation here?
K through 1 most likely, 2 through 4 will be able to most likely have the Chromebooks, and they'll be able to be a part of this. K through 1 most likely, that's still part of what we're discussing, but K through 1 most likely will continue on with the packets.
And as those computers come in, we're distributing those. We're doing another big shipment should be enough to distribute to all pre-K through everybody, to where everybody would have.
Kind of incumbent upon when we get the resources in and how quickly we can get those out as to how we do that. So
Right.
it doesn't mean that the K through 1, and for people hearing that, that doesn't mean that K through 1 that's the game plan for the remainder of the year.
Right.
We're just taking what we have
That's
in
right.
terms of resources and being able to, we'll adjust. We're gonna adjust every day with this.
So looking at this sheet, looks like, there's around 400 virtual elementary students that have signed up. Is that rough? Okay. What's the breakdown between on each grade?
It is about 87 for second grade, because factor K through 1 out right now, just dealing with
Okay.
those who have Chromebooks. It's about 87 for second grade. It is, I believe it's 75 for third grade, and I believe it's 89 for fourth grade. Those were the numbers as of today when we discussed these as a group.
So we're looking at one virtual teacher for each grade, and the minimum we're looking at is that teacher's responsible for 75 students.
Possible. Broken up, different types of instruction points through the course of the day,
Okay.
not all at the same time. Once
I mean,
again-
I worry about the, what Ms. Ritchie is saying as well, and I started earlier, is that, what's the equitable across the district, no matter what, what you choose, either hybrid, in person, or virtual. And it just, I don't want to shortchange the virtual students for whatever reason they can't come, and that just seems a lot of students for one teacher to be responsible for. I mean, that's not what a teacher would be responsible for during the day, is it?
I think that it's not necessarily, but with the way that we're gonna roll this out, and once again, these are the things that we're kind of working as a group with, and we're kind of continuing to flesh these things out. But the way that we potentially can break that up, I believe it's actually very manageable, and I think that they may actually get more instruction and more time with the teacher than what they're getting right now, potentially.
So like, for fourth grade, 89, they would be broken up into sessions of that 89. How many sessions? I mean, is it two
You
sessions?
could
three sessions?
look at 3 sessions
Three
through the course
sessions.
of the day. Once again, still developing this out, and we're
Okay.
talking out loud on things that we're
Okay.
still, so, but you
Understand.
could in theory take 3 sessions at a couple of hours apiece with a gap and a break in between each of those sessions to come up with your workday and so forth, to be able to do that, and depending on how that we structure that. We have some supplemental materials that can be utilized with this, that helps where a normal teacher under normal circumstances in what they would do would not have normally utilized, that can help with the facilitation of that. So it's a kind of a combination of that.
So, to make sure I understand, so we have a virtual teacher that will be teaching virtual, possibly, how this will work. Now, little Billy, I'll use my name, Billy, okay? Billy, if I had a teacher that I have right now, will that teacher be engaged in any of my education come the next 9 weeks? Or will it only be the new virtual teacher?
Right now, we're gonna take it one step at a time, and that's
Okay.
possible. I think I don't wanna put the cart before the horse with that. We're trying to get to the stage where we're opening this back up with October 30th, and we're targeting that June 28th timeframe, this particular time. And we're gonna take a look at it and examine it at each point, weekly, daily, that type of thing, that we need to make adjustments. Not to say that that student won't have that opportunity. It's possible that they would want to stay with this new teacher, through the course of the year. But I wouldn't want to say that if a person's used to a teacher, they switch to this, that they would no longer have contact with that particular person, whether it's a virtual side or whether it's in person. I think that would be probably too premature. We're looking at this to roll this out and see what this looks like under the plan that we're coming up with.
So will the virtual teachers actually be teachers that are teaching today, and bring them new into our system, into our district?
Some of both possible.
Some of them, okay.
So you don't have enough teachers that have felt uncomfortable to go, so most of them are coming back?
Most of them, yes. The vast majority, at this point in time, the vast majority of the teachers are coming back. And that's almost a daily conversation with administrators about if there are those teachers of concern. There's always concern about coming back. We looked at them, it's almost daily that I'm talking with principals about somebody
So, okay, so little Billy started out with Mr. Christie. Now he's gonna go to Mr. Holland, so then he goes back to in-person. So does he go back to Mr. Christie, or will he?
Yes, he would go back to, I mean, the way that we would do our best with that is he started out with that particular teacher, the one that he builds the basis. Because these particular people, at least in the initial discussions that we've had, these people that we would be bringing on to do this, I'm not Notre Dame here, and I can't predict what's going to happen, but at the same time, I have a feeling, and that's the best that I can do, is that we're going to have a need for those same amount of teachers through at least the remainder of this year. I feel that we're going to have at least enough students who are going to stay on a virtual platform. So at that point in time, if we were to go back and still offer that virtual, yes, the anticipation, the goal would be to put that student back with that teacher they originally built that with.
Which would then lessen the number for that virtual person to work with, which would be more instructional time for virtual.
Okay, and then one more question, I'll leave you alone about it, but, okay, so say you have to call back out all virtual, we go in the red. Where does little Billy go there?
No, little Billy stays with the virtual teacher.
He'll stay with whoever.
We're not putting it back for, we've talked through several of these scenarios with it. Once you come into this, that's not going to be something where little Billy gets jerked around with that, okay, now we're back in the red, and do we take that? No, because we have that class that's assigned, and you're building continuity with that particular
Okay,
one. So
so-
we'll stay with them through that time period while he's or she's on
Okay,
virtual.
okay. You can have little Billy back now.
I just comment, I know this isn't easy by any means, and it's gonna be complicated, and I hope that, the parents and the public, just be patient and work through everything we need to work through. So, thank you.
Well, I think from an overall standpoint, it's gonna be important that, that we establish at some point what the drop dead date is to make the decision. So, if students are gonna be locked in for the second 12 weeks to the virtual model, if that's what they choose, then we wanna make sure that, that we give them enough time, if we're gonna be rolling out additional information this week, that they say, that everybody knows you've gotta make a decision by X date, and this is how you communicate that decision. So, as we're discussing it, we need to make sure when we're all done, that we let parents know, here's when you need to gather the information this week, here's what plans we're gonna roll out, and by this date, you need to make a decision on virtual, because at this point in time, what we published is you're stuck with that for 12 weeks. And then here's how you do that, just so we communicate that as part of this whole process.
There's a communication going out tonight that's telling the parents to look for an email that they're going to receive tomorrow. And that email is going to have their students' schedule that they've chosen up to this point. Now, as we go through this week, they'll have an opportunity to look at that. And we need to make choices. I mean, we're going to be putting stuff out as we go through the week. And there's instruction there to contact the school if they have a change of what they're going to do. They contact the school, there's directions in that email that's going out to the parents. If they change, that they need to contact the school.
Well, in fairness to you all, that y'all need to give them a date, say, you've got to make the decision by X date, because you don't want people
Now, wait till the
getting
next-
online on October 29th and saying, here's what we chose.
That's part of the discussions, and I want to include, rather than just make that a decision that's here that sounds easy, that's part of that building level discussion that we want to include them in on what they feel comfortable with, and that's part of our process that we'll be going over tomorrow, Wednesday, as we're finalizing this particular plan, so.
And the letters you refer to, Mr. Christie, is in your district update from this
Yes.
afternoon?
Yes. And those will be going to the homes based on choices that they've made to this point. Now, there is an opportunity in there if they need to change, we still have an opportunity to do that.
I don't see, to Mr. Hassel's
There
point,
isn't
I don't see a date.
If there isn't a date, then we'll need to put that out at the school
Okay.
level. And we have concern when they get their email that they've made a change in their decision, their instructions there is to contact the
Okay.
school. And through their registrars at each school, we'll know if there's changes, we'll adjust the numbers of in-person versus virtual.
Appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Howard?
But you never have.
You're shy. Oh.
I was a little bit in danger.
Mr. Howard, consultant.
How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good. Living the dream. So I'm going to kind of just walk you through what a day would kind of look like with some clarifications on some information that came out previously. As far as entry, middle of the day, it's going to look like a lot like the high school. So we're going to come in the morning, do the standard temperature checks, just like every school. We have procedures in place. If a kid comes in hot, where we put them, our isolation room. Essentially, our kids are going to go straight to the classrooms. Doors open at 8:15. Feed and breakfast on carts, just like the high school. We do have them strategically placed so they're 6 feet apart, so they can't eat in the classroom without a mask on. We're going to have that first bit focus on basically life skills, so back to normal. So teaching kids about how are they doing social emotionally. Right? We haven't seen them in the building, so we have a social emotional curriculum that we're working through during that homeroom period where we eat, kind of get acclimated. We realize that 7th and 8th graders may not come back to school with a charged Chromebook, so allowing them to get kind of caught up during that orientation period. The one difference between us and the high school is we're not going to be changing classes right now, and I'll kind of give you a reason why. Unlike the high school that's 33% virtual, I only have 102 kids that are virtual currently, which is about 13%, which means we have about 87% who have currently said they're coming back. That puts us in a bind with space. And I know capacity-wise, Mr. Rice, we have a very big building, but we don't have enough staff to actually man each classroom. So we're still limited in the numbers. Now, good news is we figured out a way to fit every kid. We have larger science rooms, so we're going to make that their greatness homeroom. So they'll be able to manage kind of the carryover for everybody. So teachers will go class to class. There'll be 7 periods, I want to say. You get your 4 core classes and enrichment during lunch. We're going to try to have a lot of movement breaks during that time. Like Mr. Bowen said, anytime we can get outside, we're going to get outside. Take lots of bathroom breaks, so it's not like the kids are going to be in purgatory in one room for 6 hours a day. At one time, maybe that was the case, and I don't know, but we've been able to, again, as we've learned some of the things we've done with bringing in kids. We had almost 100 plus kids in today, in one day. We're learning about our kids even more, like they do cluster quite a bit. I mean, we're getting them from the cafeteria in the mornings now to the classrooms. It's hard to keep them apart. I mean, and you don't want to make it so negative, like you're chastising them every time they're too close to each other, because it's not going to take very long, and the kid's going to get tired of getting corrected over and over by being too close. So part of it is to create a more positive culture so you're not having to redirect all the time. And we want to keep people safe. That's the other part of it. There will be live instruction, both A days and both B days. So it's not like they're going to just bring their Chromebook in and work on the things that they've been working on. They will have that as a resource, as we're not changing much of our process. Parents will still get lessons posted, all of our parents, on Fridays with our online lessons and work, but they'll also get the live teaching when they come in. Our Wednesdays are going to be designated and for virtual kids as well, so we do have live sessions in the morning on Wednesdays. But when you do the math, it's not nearly as bad. When you take 102 and divide it by 2 grades, divided by 4 teams and nests per grade, you're only really dealing with about 10 to 12 kids on a nest that the 4 teachers could really focus on. Schedule individual times, maybe in the afternoon, bring them in, still contact them while they're on virtual. Again, I know it's not perfect, but with our numbers at only 13%, I really felt like I wanted our students to continue to have their own teachers, the teachers that they've had, the teachers that they've built relationships with. And frankly, I don't have enough staff to pull for a virtual team. Again, 87%. We've developed that plan as far as the instructional model with teachers, so they're also comfortable with it. So it's not like the man sitting in the chair is saying you're having to teach 3 groups. We really feel like we've kind of streamlined it. And so we have built in ways to easily move from virtual to back to hybrid to even open it up hybrid, because the way we built our nests was by looking at households, which is what the district did, so it didn't change a lot of what we were doing as far as groups and things like that. Again, when we go to the cafeteria, we have cafeteria and the upper gym, so they do have to face one way. And then as far as dismissal, we are going to do it in shifts. I'm still working with Mr. Christie and Mr. Bolin on what it looks like when the GRC kids are on campus, because we are the last stop. So that's part of the dismissal that we'll have to probably tweak, frankly. But we feel confident that we're going to keep our staff and students both safe. And then if we can start changing classes, we will, to give them an extra time. But I don't want to have to start too loose and then crack down. I want to start with a tighter plan that we can open up as the data and information we get from the health department and our teachers allow.
How's your new air conditioner?
It is working quite well. I only got angry once because someone complained about being too cold. And after weeks and months of being super hot, I was like, maybe you shouldn't say that to me right now. Let's put an extra sweater on for a couple of days.
So all your current teachers will also be responsible for the virtual students as well as in person?
That's correct, because when you break it down by nest, you're really talking just about 12 kids. And when I posed it to them, they wanted to be around their kids still and felt like that they could provide a quality education. Again, not in person. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to be the best thing since avocado toast. I just found that a couple months ago. It was pretty daggone good, by the way, yeah. But we feel like it's the best plan we can have given the health department and circumstances and cases. So that was given our staff input on. I really believe in organically solving problems, not just top down. And I feel like I can support their plans and their vision of what they want it to look like.
There was a comment several meetings back, and I apologize, I don't remember the context of the school, but someone had mentioned that they had heard that kids are just gonna come into the school, open their Chromebooks, do the same thing they would be when they was virtual. Is that?
That's absolutely categorically false.
Okay, good.
That was, I think, made more for an agenda of what people wanted to do versus what actually was gonna happen. If you look at our plan, even when that statement was made, that was nowhere in our plan. We had walk and talks built in, we had bathroom breaks, we had other things. And now we've got the full compliance and support of the staff wanting to teach their kids while they're there and wanting to give, virtual kids the best experience they can. So I'm glad you asked the question, because I got a lot of calls and a lot of emails after that board meeting to clarify what exactly RDC, hybrid, or live would look. And we're gonna try to have fun again. Whether we can accomplish that in a mask, I'm smiling right now. I hope that my eyeballs are gleaming joy. But again, do you feel them gleaming joy?
I'm feeling gleaming.
Thank you. Because our kids want to smile again. They want to laugh, but it's going to be weird for them. I mean, as we've had kids come in, they don't exactly want to eat right now, or they're not super jovial about coming in, and it's just going to take us making it the new normal for now.
So you feel confident in the plan now? Sounds like you're confident,
I'm always confident. I think that we put a lot of time and effort and been very intentional with our process. Now, are there going to be parents that complain that they're not getting enough? Yes, they will. Are there going to be parents that say they're getting too much? Yes, there will.
Mm-hmm.
I get both. But you smile and you say we're doing the best we can, and if you have ideas how we get better, we get better.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I know you guys are in a bind, but I appreciate what you do.
All right, well, good evening. I just want to walk you through what a typical day at Baker will look like for the AB hybrid kids. Early arrivals will open up at around 6:40. At 7 o'clock, 6:55, the buses will come in. Kids will go to the gym for about 10 minutes, and then they will be dismissed to their grade level areas. As normal, we'll eat breakfast in the classrooms. Students will have 4 80-minute periods. They'll have 80 minutes of reading and writing. They'll have 80 minutes of mathematics, they'll have 80 minutes of science/social studies, and then they'll have 80 minutes of related arts. They will have a 30-minute lunch. Lunch will take place in one of three places. One, the classroom, two, the cafeteria. That'll be on a rotational basis. According to the measurements, we can only get about 75 kids, 6 feet socially distanced, facing one way. Or if it's nice, we'll go outside, we'll take our classes outside and eat. Kids will not be rotating to classes. Teachers will rotate. The only classes that students will be escorted to will be their related arts, their specials. It's hard to play band, it's hard to sing in the choir, it's hard to play in the orchestra in the middle of the 5th grade hallway or the 6th grade hallway. So they will be escorted to those two places. And escorting kids at Baker really is not a change for us. We've escorted kids every year. As far as the teacher's caseload, they will have a group, a B group, and then they will have a set of hybrid students that they will teach on opposite days. I am happy and I'm very excited. I just met with the teachers before coming up here this evening. We have hired 2 full-time dedicated distance learning or virtual teachers. One will teach ELA and social studies. The other will teach math and science. We do have about 17 students with IEPs, 15 students with IEPs who will be staying 100% virtual. We've also freed up 1 full-time special education teacher. So I will have 3 teachers dedicated to servicing the students who are 100% virtual. So what would that look like for them? They too will get reading, math, science, social studies, and related arts. We'll be using the school's PLP program that the district purchased 2 months or so ago. We're still working through that, but we're very excited about the opportunity. There is no way to make it totally equitable, but I do want our 5th and 6th graders to have that interaction daily with their teacher. Wednesdays, and ask me what I want. Ask me, Mr. Richard, what do you want? What do you need?
What do you need?
I need that Wednesday for my teachers. We will still be having live sessions for all AB hybrid students from 9 a.m. to 12. All students, 9 a.m. to 12, we will have live Google Meet sessions every single Wednesday. Give the teachers a 30-minute lunch from 12:30 to 3:30. They will be in their PLCs. Teachers are running multiple groups. They need adequate time to plan. So that would be the one wish list. That costs a thing. Give us those afternoons on Wednesdays. I can't stress that enough. But that's really it in a nutshell. We're going to take all the safety precautions, 6 feet social distancing. Students in the classroom will be facing the same way. Everyone that's come to the podium tonight has said those things, hand sanitizer, and that's Baker's plan.
You said they were going to the gym when they first, how are you doing that?
So when students come through the door, we have a 10-minute window from 6:55 to 7:05. Staff arrives at 7 o'clock, so I give teachers 5 minutes to get to their classrooms, get the doors open, and get ready. So when students come off the bus, they will go to the gym, and we actually, if you come up and walk Baker's gym, the bleachers are in, and we have every 6 foot, we have a little piece of tape about the size of a quarter, and they will sit 6 feet apart, 6 feet across from one another, and they'll wait. That buys us some time for staff to get there. That way the staff doesn't have to get there at 6:45.
Well, I just want to say that I have heard nothing but great things about Baker, that y'all are doing today, and I know the teachers are working hard. Talked to a couple of them today, and understand the thought process on Wednesdays as well, so.
Well, thank you for that. They are definitely hard working. I want to thank Central Office, to all the departments of Central Office, just been very supportive. We've collaborated. I talk to principals every single day, folks that I may have said 1,000 words to, before all this. We're talking every day, collaborating, bouncing ideas. both the elementary and the middle and high school, and it's forged just into tighter collaboration, so thank you.
Will we have masks available if kids show up without them? We will for all the
Buses
schools.
and at schools, yeah.
Will they be on the buses? Okay.
Masks,
Uh-huh.
yes, yes. Be given out on buses if a child comes to the bus and doesn't have one.
It's a good point. What do we do if a kid shows up to school without a mask? I mean, are we gonna give them a mask before they come in?
All the buildings is the first thing, they'll give them a mask. Obviously, if they refuse to wear a mask, then we'll have to contact the parent.
Right.
And if they still refuse to wear a mask, that puts other kids at risk. Now, unless there's a medical reason, there are some exemptions from that, but if there is not an exemption from that, then they have to go on the virtual platform if they can't adhere to the mask.
Is that gonna be in the email that goes out?
Well, that's been in everything that we've sent out.
Okay.
Max, in every plan, the plan to look at it, said students will wear a mask, at all times, we'll wear a mask.
And this is what happens if not, okay.
That's a piece that's not changed, because that's something that's not changed from day one, is the mask being required. In fact, it's got now mandated at all times, except when eating.
Questions? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Elementary, anybody want to go first? Kennedy?
We'll go age before beauty here, so, oldest one. So, right now, just to kind of let you all know, we're basically 80% hybrid, 20% virtual, so we're getting pretty close to being packed. The arrival dismissal is very similar to what you're hearing, except our kids will go straight to the classroom as they come into the building. So we thought about trying to hold them in the gym for a few minutes, but that was just another place where they were all going to be collected. So I just thought, let's just get them to the classroom so we can get them distance. We have people in the hallways to make sure the kids are distanced as they're walking down the hallways. Breakfast in the classroom, so they'll be provided there. The carts will be out there and they'll be handing the breakfast as they go in. Again, the kids are sitting, all facing the same direction so they can eat in the classroom. Right now, the same for lunch. We're working on a schedule where we're hoping to be able to have lunch at least, not every day, at least give a class once a week in there just to give that teacher a break. I'm still worried about getting them in, getting them fed, and then getting everything sanitized and allowing it to do what it needs to do for the time it needs to do it before we get the next group in. So that's kind of a work in progress. Our A group is Monday and Tuesday, obviously, and Wednesday through Friday they'll have work to do and still potentially be able to meet with the teachers if at all possible for those days. Definitely on Wednesday, the B group, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday through Wednesday. And again, Wednesday right now is critical for our teachers because they need the planning, grading, meeting with meeting with students, potentially meeting with parents. So that's, so that question about Wednesday, we need that. The teachers need that Wednesday. We're still kind of dealing with, we've got a couple of classes that are technically above capacity right now. So we're trying to deal with the idea of an overflow room. I'm hoping to be able to avoid that, but that's kind of what we're going to be working on this week and next. Our numbers are still fluctuating a little bit. So, and I suspect, when the letters go out, they could fluctuate a little bit more. Our protocols, social distancing, I'm always, I feel like I'm, I said I'm the social distancing, I'm always, I've said the words 6 feet about, 10,000 times, I think, from the time of the start. I'm always going 6 feet, 6 feet, always trying to make sure everyone, elementary teachers, they like to cluster, so they're a social bunch. And it's really interesting, watching the kids, some of the teachers we have the X's and the, going down the hallway, it's like, all right, move to the next desk, move to the next desk. So, so it takes a while just to, get to bathroom. But, the hand washing and the sanitizing protocols are all in place. They come around and sanitize the bathrooms, each bathroom, once an hour, so they do that hourly. And our custodial crew, sometimes working just a couple of them, we're doing yeoman's work, trying to keep us all safe. So dismissal, we feel pretty good about that right now. We're still tweaking a little bit, knowing that our numbers are going to more than double when we do this. So it's going to be a whole, so we're practicing now, but it's going to be, it's going to be that much more challenging once we increase the numbers. So Monday will still be a materials pickup and drop off for the K-1 students and some of the other students as well, if they're still having internet issues and they can't use the technology. So, and right now, our biggest, challenge, I think, is just, it's just the time and the effort it takes. We're allowing for mask breaks and getting them to lunch and getting them to the restroom and back. It's, it's a mental strain. It's a challenge because, our teachers, it's not like just, all right, line up, let's go to the bathroom, and you're sitting there just, all right, the next one go, the next one go. The whole time the teachers are just always having to say, okay, who goes next, did you sanitize, this on and on. So it's, but they've been doing, a great job. So, and, so hopefully we won't have any issues, but, no one can guarantee, that we won't. So we're going to do everything we can to avoid it. So related arts right now will be in the classroom. So, we're hoping at some point to allow the classes to go to the related arts room, but then again, it gets to be, you get that many kids in the same space and then having to sanitize that space before you get the next group, it's going to be a challenge. Probably, I think gym, they'll be able to go to gym right now. So, and, lunch, I've told them, get outside as often as you can. This afternoon, it was raining, so they all, for their mask break, went out under our overhang out front just to get a breath. So that's kind of about it right now. So any questions for Shear specifically?
I will say that Kennedy is on the 6 foot thing, the mask thing, he's very sticky on that. He did call a lodge complaint. We had a fire alarm go off in the Shear building because of water pressure drop in the area. He called and lodged a complaint because the firemen weren't 6 feet apart and they weren't wearing masks.
So I told them they said, yeah, I said, well, they're out in the truck. I said, you might want to get them on, but I didn't want to get in their way of we didn't know exactly what was going on, so I didn't want to interfere with their job. But it was like, hey guys, they all walked in, no mask, and so, but that's kind of where we're at right now, so.
You letting kids out on the playground and?
Say that again.
Are you letting the kids outside?
Oh, no. We have a little, right now they're getting to go out on the back. Now they go out back and they distance, out there. And I've said, with the mask off, they have to be more than 6 feet. Our related arts team painted some little, like obstacle course, little kinds of stuff and hopscotch and some other things just so out in the back lot so the kids can go out there and with their mask off, well spaced, they can go and use that a little bit just to get a little bit of
We're expecting
exercise.
more guidance on playground.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I know that was a subject in
Yeah.
the task
We're
force meeting.
expecting some more,
Okay.
some guidance on that, about
Okay.
how often it has to be sanitized. There's still, it's debatable how long the virus will live on the playground equipment, things like that outdoors, so.
I keep waiting for my first kid to say, forget it, I gotta go to the playground and go play and just take off and decide they're gonna go. So we'll hopefully avoid that. So. Questions from? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Travis, you wanna go?
Oh. I'm terrible at this. You're natural. Hello, everybody. I don't think we've officially met. I'm the new guy on the block this year. I met Mr. Parado. He come out and visited. I'm Travis Markham, principal at Concrete. And I don't have anything drastically different than what you've already heard. We've got arrival plans, we've got dismissal plans. We've got markings on our floors, social distancing markers. We've also got bathroom signage for hygiene. And I mean, nothing that's drastically different than you've already heard. So do you have any questions that haven't been addressed that I might be able to help you with? Or anything you want to know specifically about contract?
What's your capacity as far as how many kids are returning?
Well, right now in hybrid group A, we have 172 kids. Hybrid group B, 166. And then distance learning, we have 110. We're strictly virtual.
What's that percentage?
I have no idea what that percentage is.
What was your A and B, and I'll cipher.
172, 166.
It's on your sheet.
Jennifer just gave us
That's the sheet that was sitting on our desk.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, Jennifer gave us, yeah.
76. Again, 76, 1
Are you, on the virtual teaching, how are you addressing the virtual group? Are you having dedicated teachers just like what's been mentioned so far? Or?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about with Mr. Holland and the
Okay.
other 3 elementary principals. We met today for about an hour and 15 minutes to talk about some of those options that you heard, about whether we're going to designate someone at the district level to be a 2nd grade virtual teacher, or whether we're going to try to work on that in-house. And those conversations, we're going to continue that conversation tomorrow.
That's right, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Obviously, the 2 most important points are, you want to provide what's best for the students, educational equity, but you also have to keep in mind teacher workload and what's feasible for the teachers. We don't want teacher burnout, which I could see happening very quickly once they're prepping for definitely 3 different groups, if that's the case. Even with that Wednesday in there, which is obviously needed, I don't know how they can effectively do it for three different groups. So I'm glad we're having those conversations.
When the students arrive in the morning, are they going directly to the classroom?
They are,
Okay.
yep. Car riders go directly to the classroom from the front entrance. Bus riders come in through the cafeteria entrance. Both entrances have the thermal cameras. Then they go directly to the classes.
And I should have asked this on some others, but is the thermal equipment working properly?
Oh yeah, once I got my cameras adjusted just right, they're working
Okay.
great.
We adjusted the
Yeah.
cameras.
Okay.
No, they're working great, they are. Anything else?
I think you're off the hook.
All right,
Thank you.
it's nice to meet you guys.
You too.
Nice to meet you.
I won't touch anything, how's that? I didn't even bring anything up here, so I'm good. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I probably don't have much to add that has not already been said for Sturt Station, except that you should come and check out our cafeteria. We moved all of our tables out and put desks and chairs in order to maximize our area for our kids. So it's a different look. I'm also going to say that I totally support the Wednesdays. I'm really worried about our teacher workload. And so I just want to say that I support that, and I appreciate that right now we're keeping that in place. The last week has been great because we've had a chance to practice. Bringing the kids in, we've had over 100 kids every day. We've practiced every procedure that we possibly could. We've tweaked, and I feel very confident with what we have in place, and that has worked really well. Kids don't seem to have problems with masks. Having them on, now keeping them up all day is really tough for our little guys. But I am impressed, everybody comes in with a mask, everybody, keeps their mask on. We have all the markings on the floor, we have all the, things in place with 6 feet, and all those particular protocols. Our kids are going straight to the classroom. They are having breakfast in the classroom. I'm trying to work it out that we have lunch in the cafeteria. I think we're just about there, so that every group, so the teachers could have their lunchtime. Our related arts is a work in progress because we're working through the numbers and things like that. So that is something. So another concern that I have is that it's so hard to talk in mask. No, I'm eating it. Is that our teachers will have their kids from about 7:15 to dismissal time, which is almost close to 3, and in the same classroom and things like that. And that's a concern I have. So that's something we're gonna have to be very mindful of and work with. I have, right now, my enrollment is about 510. I have 107 that are on just the distance learning that have signed up, and so it's about an even split, 211, 193 for A and B. So about 20%, closer to 21% for distance learning. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I have a question. So and this goes across the district, I guess, because the teachers are having students from the time they get there to the time they leave without really a break.
Yes, that's a concern.
Yeah, is it, and I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. Because staffing is hard. We do not have extra people, because based upon the numbers that we have coming back in the building, I don't have anybody extra that can just go do this or that. And so related arts is an issue. They have to, if you stop and think about it, our related arts teachers, if you do the way that we used to always do it, like last year, then they're exposed to a lot of kids every day. And so I'm trying to minimize that as well. How can I minimize the number of kids that each related arts teacher is exposed to each day to keep them safe? So we're working on that. The chances are an art teacher will have one grade level the entire week and then switch the next. So.
And Mr. Christie, is there a requirement, or a policy statewide for teachers to have,
Well, they're
a break during the day?
Duty-free lunch and some things like that, and that's what you've heard all of them talking about, trying to work through there and trying to figure out ways. Our staff, district-wide, they're workers, and nobody has come to me complaining about a duty-free lunch. They're trying to make this work. The staff is trying to make it, and they're working with us in any way that we need them to, and I can't say enough good things about the staff, and they're doing that, because I've not had anybody complain about those kinds of things. But they do need time to work together to plan. And even the best, you said it, we've listened to the principals, and even the best laid plans, the best made plans at this point is going to change on the 30th when we get 200 kids in the building. There's going to be things we're going to have to work. Flexibility is going to be the key word for it to make all this stuff work. And the teachers are doing that now. And just like Mr. Rock said, it's just going to be different. There may be for them, they may have the same group of kids all week, and the next week they'll switch and they'll have another group of kids. Then over a 4-week period, they've all got their time. And she verbalized that you're seeing the same thing these others are having to do, make some of the same kinds of decisions too. You've heard a couple of them talking about using that Wednesday for some PLCs. That's key, the planning time for these teachers to get not just by themselves to work on theirs, but to come together as a group of teachers at a grade level, so that the grade level is getting the same experience from each of the teachers. It's just key. You've got to have that. And they're doing that now. They're doing that, and we got to continue to do that when we get back to the full hybrid.
Teachers are working very hard.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. The communication, collaborating, it's awesome. And then like Mr. Mount said, even those of us together, I mean, we talk more than we've ever talked. So, and I appreciate that. It's been a big help.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I can just stand here and say ditto. I think everything's pretty much, we're all basically on the same page. We're trying to work out related arts. That planning time for teachers is crucial. We're getting close to being able to have our students come in the cafeteria for lunch. We're not quite there yet, working on it. Like everyone else, we have the holding room if a child should come in. I'm the person that's gonna man that. I'm not asking my staff to step up and do that. If we should have a sick child, that's gonna fall on me. I'm not gonna ask them to do something I'm not willing to do myself. So, one thing I don't think any of us have really talked about yet is the fact that, for example, Greg Yates contacted, I know several of us, he contacted me and I just said, I'm not bringing parents in the building right now unless they're picking up a child early. I'm not bringing volunteers even through PI in right now. I just don't feel that's safe. As a little exposure, putting extra people in for the kids as possible. Again, talking about those Wednesday planning times, you've got staff that's on the verge of cracking. They're literally doing 2 full-time jobs right now. And Ruth Ann touched on it. I don't think we can stress that enough of how hard the teachers are working. I've taken away Tuesday afternoon staff meetings. That's kind of a district thing that we do. I've taken those away, just that's one less thing on their plate. We've moved, instead of meeting with each grade level once a week, I meet with the whole staff. We just do a staff PLC, keep that as brief as possible because they need to be working with their team to plan. There's a lot of videos at every grade level that are recorded on Wednesdays. You all have no idea of the planning that's gone in to make this production work. We started with kids one at a time from the first day of school. We gradually increased it about 3 weeks ago to about 5, no more than 5 at a time. Then, ultimately going to the hybrid method. Our percentages are about 75% in the building, 25% still at home or working from home. On top of that, I still have 25% of my population that's special education students. Those teachers have to have that time on Wednesdays to be able to meet with them. My 4th grade teachers who are departmentalized, the teachers are switching, not the children, but all 4 of them put me as part of their Google Classroom so I can see what they're doing each day. And about the first 2 days, I got all of the emails that they're getting from children, explaining or asking questions from parents, and I nearly lost my mind. And so they came in, thankfully Ms. Brooks came in and said, let's set you up so you don't have to see all that. If you all could see that, you would be shocked. I kind of like the way you all kind of got a little bit of feel tonight for when we try to plan something and you're like, but what about that? And what about that? But then that affects that, and then that affects that. That's exactly what this has been. So, again, those Wednesdays are absolutely crucial. I'm telling you, you've got staff that's working twice as hard as they normally do. So there's my spiel. So, any questions? No? Okay.
I get my questions regularly.
Yeah, we'll talk. Okay, thanks.
You gotta get sprayed.
Spray. I'll let him spray while I give you guys kind of a 1-page, sort of like an FAQ about what our plan is. It's front and back. We've really sort of already started doing what we will be doing on the 30th, just on a slightly smaller scale. Preschool by nature is really heavy with students with disabilities because we're an early intervention program. So we're more than 50% student with disabilities. We've been bringing those students in at least twice a week, and students without disabilities once a week unless their parents have requested. We've been trying to, so this is going to be a small upscale for us. Let's see, we what A and B looks like, exactly what everybody else has said. On the days that our students will not be attending in person, they will be able to participate in the videos that we produce daily. Those will be recorded on the Wednesdays. The students who are going to stay on virtual 100% of the time, they will still get that one-on-one virtual session with their teacher on Wednesdays, as well as a small group. So on Wednesdays, teachers may be doing 4 or 5 individual virtual meetings and a group virtual meeting. Social interaction is critical for the development of 3 and 4-year-olds, preschool students, right? They have to have that social interaction. So it's social distancing in preschools is a challenge. Hand-to-hand transportation at all times, because a preschooler may get away from you, right? So it's a little bit of a balance, and that's what I keep explaining to my staff and to parents, that it's a balance between social interactions and social distancing. So we can't do 100% 6 feet all the time. We're gonna do like every other seat and stagger them in the cafeteria at tables, but they still have to have their teacher there. They might need to be fed, they might need to be prompted to eat, they might need some hand over hand, different types of interactions like that. I feel very strongly that playground time is essential for a preschool. I mean, we know with brain development that students' brains prioritize locomotive movement, right? If they're not, if you can't run, skip, hop, and jump, then you're not going to be able to learn to read when you're in the 1st grade at the elementary school. So it's vital that we do that. We've just recently purchased an outdoor classroom, and we're going to do a rotation between the outdoor playground, indoor gross motor, and the outdoor classroom, so the kids can get all that. And we feel confident with our sanitation plans. One thing that has presented a little bit of an issue is getting kids out of cars. Normally, my staff reaches into a car, they unstrap a student, they put the backpack on the student, and they get the student out of the car and walk them hand to hand. That's a lot of both us putting our heads into other parents' cars, potentially exposing that family, but then also, keeping the staff safe. So that's something that we're working on. We have started having parents get their kids out of the car. We're kind of going down the line, taking temperatures there, getting the kids out of the car, and then bringing them in. Any questions for preschool?
Are you all providing for virtual? How are they doing virtual?
So we send out a video every day, and we do it through our Facebook and through our YouTube channel, but we also send it to every parent's phone. Not everybody has internet connection and a computer, but pretty much everybody has a phone. So because we upload them on YouTube, we can send that link to the family as long as they have minutes. If they don't, then we're doing packets. We've sent home learning materials and that kind of thing. That's what we're doing, the videos. And then we ask parents, we're trying to encourage high levels of participation. So we ask them to upload a video or a photo, which helps us with our documentation because we have to track kids' student progress. And if they do that, then they get entered into drawings to win bicycles and things like that. So it kind of helps support that incentivizes parents to engage. Really, it's a lot about parent education. If we send a video, we're asking the parent to watch it with the child, so the parent can repeat that activity over and over. This is a song we can sing together that's going to support a particular skill, and we can do that over and over. We've got songs now about wearing our masks, and we've got songs about social distancing, and we're trying to get kids to use their bird wings and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of education, a lot of hand washing. We've got signs in every classroom and in the bathrooms, and saying our ABCs while we wash our hands and all that kind of stuff. Any other questions for preschool?
How many students have you had come in this past, or last week, I guess, or?
Do you have that number?
Yeah, it's in your.
Is it?
Is that in your updates?
I think it's in your update.
Okay, so
List of-
I'll look.
Is it about 40 a day? So what is that, 120 a week, 47 a
Okay,
day?
so you're
120 a
pretty
week.
close to what you're.
We're getting there, yeah. It's
okay.
weird at preschool because when they do the capacity by classroom, it says that our total building capacity is 150. But if you do it by 15% for the whole building, it's 115. So we're gonna be kind of pushing it no matter what, but, we've got it under control. It's been going really well. The hardest part has been the buses, because preschoolers coming off the bus and they can't even necessarily tell you their name or who their teacher is. So we've got to have the backpack with the bus tag and the switching all the time. You know, if they're attending on a Monday, Tuesday, and then getting the Wednesday schedule, because we've got to know exactly who's in what line, getting on what bus. It's different than the older grades where you just kind of release your kids and they go. We have to know exactly who got on what bus at what time and make sure that we know where every single child is for safety reasons. So that's been the hardest part for us to adjust, is how to keep track of all that, but we've practiced and written it down. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Parado asked earlier about what we would do as far as notifying on positive cases. It's a plan we're currently have in place. We've worked out with the health department. If we have a positive case of a student in a school, there is a letter, it's a pre-written letter that would be sent out, that would be got out to parents. We do that through our website, our social media sites, our district website, the school website, saying that there was a positive case in that building. We have to notify parents. It's also on our dashboard. You can look at it every day. If there's a positive student, we do not have to notify a quarantine. However, that's on our dashboard. You can see that on our dashboard that everybody has access to. If there is a positive case of a staff member, there's also already a letter written that's given. The administrators have that. They distribute that to their staff. Of course, it gives no names on any of this. And the staff will be notified if there is a positive case now in their building. And when we would make the arrangements with the principal to have a substitute come in, take the place of the one that can no longer be there. As I told you in the updates, we're just now getting to that threshold to where positive cases and quarantines are now starting to overlap into when we're going to start to return to school. So Scarlett, Christy, and I, it's going to get tougher now, because we have to really be cognizant of those deadlines, those termination dates of those, and work closely with the health department when they're being released on those dates and requiring those letters. As it's been, since we've been all virtual, for students, it's not been critical that we know the dates, other than we know that they're not supposed to be brought it back into school. And we've had a couple of students that were under quarantine that actually got on the bus to come to school, because the answer was, well, we didn't know we couldn't go to school. So that's something we're going to have to watch really close and work closely with the health department on monitoring those that are quarantined, whether the staff does a good job, and we know that up front, and they will work around that. But it's the students. We're finding their most difficult times Monday morning, because stuff happens over the weekend, and a lot of times we don't get the word of it until maybe, say, Monday morning, and we're having to work through that, figure out how to work through that with the health department, get some earlier notifications so we know, can get to our bus people, not, to not make certain stops. As far as numbers of cases, we'll monitor that. Obviously, if the county goes to red, under the current policy or procedures, operating procedures in the state, if the county goes red, you're supposed to go back to total virtual. We'll monitor that. The way it was set up, you were to look at that every Thursday night. But now that the dashboard is being updated every day, that's something that you can do every day. You can look at it. If the county goes red, we would come into school the next day. We would make the announcement the following morning that starting the next day for a week, we'll be on, for at least 1 week, we'll be on all virtual. We'd have them come in that day following that so that they can pick up Chromebooks, things that they might have left at school, whichever group's coming in, so they can get everything and go back. And we would say at least 1 week in virtual, all virtual. And that's been in the letter, telling them, reminding them that we could go from in-person to virtually overnight, depending on the numbers. And then we would start to look 1 week later. We would look at, right before the 1 week later, we would look if it's dropped back down, then we could continue back to the hybrid. We'd go back into whatever model we were in at that time, or we could continue to stay in the virtual if the county remains in the red. So that's kind of where we are on that. Anything else? Was there other points of the positives or anything you wanted to?
No, I just think it's so important that they know the plan, that the parents know exactly how they're gonna be contacted during that time. So basically, if we do go to a red, that wouldn't be an all call then. You'd go back the next day and make sure that you did get those, and parents would know all that. As long as they know all that, You know, I just feel like, you know, the plans that we heard tonight, it looks like there's a lot of thought and everything's went well in there. And it's easy for us to understand these, and these people in this room to understand these. You know, we just have to make sure that everybody else out there understands it. And I know sometimes we take it for granted that people know and they don't really know. So, I just, you know, again, I just think we just have to make sure we communicate as often as we possibly can and get as much information as we possibly can, not only from the district level, but each school and the things that they do with their.
You mentioned you guys too, go out to school websites, look, there's social media sites or websites and their YouTube pages. They've got some great videos out there of what school's gonna look like. Here's how we're gonna enter the buildings, here's how we're gonna do this, here's how we're gonna do lunch. You know, this is where we're gonna go to classes. And they've got teachers going through modeling what the students are gonna do and those kinds of things. So there's some really, about every one of the schools has been really, really good at producing these videos and putting out there. So those are out there, parents are seeing those. And that generates questions and gives us an opportunity to answer some questions too.
More questions, comments?
I just want to say one more time, flexibility has got to be the key word for all this. There's going to be some changes. There's going to be changes in the plans that you heard here tonight. And it'll be, as Mr. Barrow said, it'll be incumbent on us to get that word out to the parents of what those changes are so that they understand the changes. And it's a great group. It's difficult times, but I've enjoyed watching how this group comes together.
Are you all good going, or do you need a break?
You want to,
It's up to you all.
I want to just take a break, stretch your legs. Feel great.
All righty, we'll just take a 5-minute break.
Thank you all for coming in, really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Yeah, great. Session at 8:34 PM. And we are on item number 6. Consider approval of Kentucky Volkswagen settlement option. Paul Christie, David Nichols.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Howdy.
Before we get to the item, I just want to do a quick shout out to our custodial staff, whose workload has doubled and tripled at times during this time frame of COVID, and our transportation staff getting wheels out. Right now, our transportation staff are basically doing a route, essentially doing a route every day, and getting kids into school. So I just want to take a second to thank them for that and the tremendous job they're doing. And our custodial staff probably has a reason to complain, but I've not heard the first complaint from our custodial staff. So I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge those two groups of people. As far as the agenda item goes, it is what it says it is. We do not have any buses coming off Kista this year. Therefore, normally we would not ask the board to entertain an idea of purchasing buses unless we did. However, just in recent weeks, we have been made aware that the Volkswagen settlement has come through. I think it's $96.5 million distributed across the United States. Kentucky's portion, and I had to go ahead and fill out this application to kind of solidify our spot to order these buses. We did have 2 buses that did qualify for the Volkswagen settlement. And basically, or essentially, it is basically giving us an opportunity to purchase 2 buses for the price of 1 bus. So unless you have any questions, I'll leave it in your hands.
Where's the funding coming from?
My suggestion would be to, and I've talked with Mr. Christie, sorry, I forgot his name.
I've been there.
Talked with Mr. Christie and Ms. Ellis, and we do think we have enough capital outlay in our KISTA program to cover the expense of this. Again, I don't want to speak for her, but I have spoken to her, that's her suggestion as well, is to purchase the buses using KISTA. And again,
And bonded.
and bond.
Yearly payment spread out over 20 years, 10 years or something.
I just got confused. So were you planning on bonding it or using just capital outlay funds? I'm sorry.
Well, I thought go with the KISS and spread it out over 10 years like we do all of our buses. Now,
Okay.
you have in the past, you all have bought a couple. If we used capital outlay, we just straight out capital outlay, you could buy. It'd be 95,000 something if you use out of your capital outlay. Keep in mind, in your document that I sent you beforehand, there's about 300 and something.
I was gonna ask if that affected that $300-some thousand, so.
Now, we had already kind of reduced it. The amount that I showed you in there has been reduced by some because we thought we could use this, so it's been reduced to that already, but that's where it's coming from. It would reduce the amount. There's actually about 97,000 more in the capital outlay than what's in your update there.
Okay, I don't want to confuse the matter. I think there's been confusion on debt service and capital outlay. Buses cannot be used on capital outlay. KISTA bonds are paid out of general fund, okay? So if we bond it, you're upping your debt level of KISTA that is then budgeted in the general fund. So, I mean, that is one way to do it, is you bond the entire amount of 2 buses, and then when we get the money back from the Volkswagen settlement, we can pay off half of the KISTA debt so that the debt payments won't last as long, and then you have the rest of that debt payment spread out over the years versus paying one lump sum. But that is another option, is you could pay the one lump sum out of contingency, and then you reimburse with the half of the Volkswagen settlement money when we get it.
That's the reason I said it, and I won't speak for her.
What's your recommendation on that, Mr. Christie? You know,
Well, I have some reservations.
It's like a 6 of one, half dozen of the
Yeah,
other.
the tendency, because I've been there the last couple of weeks, you know where we are with that. You could pay half of it back when the settlement comes in. It's hard to not recommend it because it's not very often you get basically a free bus.
Kids' interest rates are really low.
Yes, they are low.
I mean, you're talking the lump sum out of capital, or if you spread it over, KISTA is the 10-year, you're spreading those payments out for one bus essentially, that you're gonna be paying about $2,000 roughly, it'd be about 2 times a year, so for about $4,000 to $5,000 for 10 years per se for one bus, if we did the KISTA thing.
How many have we have come up? I haven't looked.
There's none coming
I
off
know
this
this year, next year in their group.
Next year, there's 4
buses
coming off.
coming off. We pay off
So
4.
we're gonna pay off the KISTA for the 2022 school year, we have 4 buses coming off. You could essentially say this is one bus going on, and you could still get 3 more and keep our debt load the same as it currently is.
And that's what we've been trying to do, is trying to keep that debt load about the same, but we're still replacing buses.
And doing it that way doesn't affect contingency.
No, because you're basically,
Basically.
if next year, because this would essentially be on next year's budget, and you have 4 buses coming off next year's budget, so that debt load is gonna go down on our 2022 for KISTA by 4 buses. We're getting ready to pay that off come the next year, like this is the last year for that KISTA loan. And then you would have 1 bus per se going on, and then you still have the option to put 3 more buses next year, but keep your debt level how we are currently budgeted right now.
I got confused in part of that.
Okay.
So I think what you said is that we cannot use capital outlay funds for buses. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So our alternative is pay cash, and pay cash means comes out of the contingency or finance them.
Correct.
Okay.
And use the debt, if you do have a general fund, you could use the settlement from this to pay part, the reimburse part of it back into KISTA, into general fund.
So we could pay for, right now, we could pay for half of it out of general funds, knowing that we're gonna be getting that back from the settlement, and then finance the other half. And here, whenever we get that in, that'll wash out what we paid out of general funds.
Yeah, we'll have to get with KISTA on, I don't know if there's a rule of like you can do 1 KISTA bus, or I'd have to get with KISTA to know if we can do. I know it's grouping a lot of schools doing it together, so as far as the funding of how that goes, I have to check with KISTA to
You
know
were
how
able
that
to
falls
fund
out.
one bus, you were able to do any number of buses with them unless
It
something's
is.
changed, yeah.
Okay. So we've always done 3 or 4, so we've never done 1.
So what you're saying, Mr. Heisel, is that we would pay for one and finance one, is that what?
Yes, yeah, we pay for one, and then when the Volkswagen funds actually came through, that would
That's
do.
reimbursed.
That would reimburse us
in
for what we,
those
yeah.
days.
So our contingency fund would go down, it's called $100,000 for a couple months, and then when it came back in, it would restore back to that level.
That seems the best way. I mean, I don't think you can turn down the deal to get, buses are always premium if you can get one for half price.
Good deal.
It's.
I will say this for clarity purposes, we do get to use we have 2 buses that qualify. We get to use those until the new buses come in. And once we receive the new buses, we do have to destroy the engines of the 2 buses that we're replacing. We have 90 days to do that in.
It'll be surplus,
Yes, you surplus them. And
Surplus them,
Yeah,
yeah.
you surplus them because they have to be destroyed, we're not allowed to use them anymore.
so somebody built a house and 2 buses there over the weekend there, so. Might be my new house.
Come over.
Well, they
Can't
don't have
move
one.
it.
They put a grill in the hood. Looked pretty good.
One of the buses is actually a special needs bus that we were looking to replace fairly soon anyway.
So it'd be an air conditioned
Qualified.
bus.
And then the other bus is an older bus that we use only in desperate times.
Sounds good to me.
So if our financing game plan was to right now pay for half out of general funds and expect to get a reimbursement from Volkswagen later on that, and the remaining half out of KISTA, what exactly should the motion be to move forward on that?
Well, can we discuss that a little more? Because because it sounds like that we have 4 buses right now that's gonna come off next year, correct? So, they would come off. So we're gonna be really adding 1 full bus on there, but getting 2 buses in return. So I don't understand why we would even need to touch contingency fund. Or why because I mean, because at that point, we're only, if we pay it out of the contingency, then we're going to be financing half of a bus, basically. I mean, is that right?
One bus. Right, because you're getting two.
You have one for free.
Yeah, but we're paying
You actually
for,
pay half for both of them.
Yeah.
You get them for half price, but you're getting two for what would normally cost you one, but you're paying for half price of both of them.
Are you thinking about financing both of them and then just
well,
pocketing the cash?
well, no, because if you finance both of them, when you get the refund back, then you pay that toward your,
We can go ahead and pay a lump sum on the KISTA debt, or you put the two options are, you pay up that lump sum when you get it, we just send it to the company and say, here, we wanna pay off some of our debt, more than what the payment is, just like you do on any personal loan you would have, you can pay
Okay.
extra if you want. Or you just put that back in contingency and carry on with the KISTA debt, those are the two
Okay.
options.
so we don't even have to, I mean, we don't have to touch the contingency, because when that money comes back, we can put that money toward the,
You can carry on with the KISTA and pocket
KISTA.
money. They're not telling
That would
you
be
you
my-
have to put it on the debt.
My recommendation would be to finance them both through KISTA, put the money back in the general fund when you get the reimbursement.
Well,
It's $97,000.
and you're getting two buses for that $90,000.
You're
and
getting
then, and that's,
$90,000,
so you're now talking about financing both of them, and then when the money comes in, the reimbursement, pocketing that.
You can decide whether you want to pocket or just put it on, you know.
It's the board's decision
Yeah,
if you.
it's
put it
$97,000 of
just to pay
income,
off debt.
that's gonna go on that income, so that's gonna decrease that deficit.
So you put it back in contingency, or you could pay it toward KISTA.
That'll be your choice at that time.
And at that point, it'd be, board could decide.
But we don't anticipate buying 4 more buses next
Well,
year or anything like that?
We would, if we did, probably by doing this, we probably wouldn't buy, but at the most.
Just buy 2, just so we keep it the same.
So
So
we
we're
keep
not
it
in
the
a,
same.
we're not in a bind to where we have to buy 4 buses.
No,
This will be
no.
fine with keeping the 4 buses on the. Okay, I see.
And so then, when would the payments start for the KISTA for these?
They should, if we do that in this school year, the first payment would be the next school year in the 2022 budget.
To July.
So the 4 we were talking about doing for next year, we would be essentially advancing 2, bringing the purchase commitment forward for 2 of those.
Yes. And we would reduce that, instead of asking for 4 for next year, we would only do 2.
And so then by financing both of them, essentially, at the end of this process, when the reimbursement comes in for Volkswagen, then our contingency fund, if it's X amount right now, it'll go up by $97,000.
You put it there,
Yes, sir. So essentially how the process works is we have to do a purchase order to get the order rolling for the 2 buses, which never technically gets paid. If you do the KISTA, it's just, you have to do that up front to say you will take care of the cost if for some reason KISTA doesn't come through, but that's never been an issue for us because the KISTA bond is not technically put together and sold until January. And then January is when all of the districts who have decided to participate in KISTA put in how many buses they're buying, they sell that bond. Ross Sinclair, who is our bonding agent, is typically who takes care of that, even for the KISTA people. And then they'll send our portion, Clark County's, to the manufacturer who's creating our buses for us, and basically wipes out that PO because they got their money from KISTA, and then we get the debt schedule that will stretch it for 10 years to pay off.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve, of the Kentucky Volkswagen settlement option to purchase those 2 buses using KISTA.
Okay, motion by Mr. Talby,
Second.
second by Mr. Peardo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7, consider approval of drawings and specifications for the central office roof replacement project.
Yes, the drawings and IAI documents necessary for putting the project out to bid. The board approved some months ago to redo the roof, complete a redo
a new roof project on this central office, that's tough to say. Back several months ago, and this would get us actually to the bidding phase. I've also included a proposed time scale on bidding and opening bids and honoring bids and when the project would actually start, and maybe, possibly early spring. So the documents in your hand, approval would get us to the bid early February. Also included the BG1, I think, in your packet as well.
That is a capital outlay project.
We're gonna make it through the winter, hope for light snow.
Put on the February, but
No snow.
it's, the leaves are over Brian's head. One of the leaves.
Looking a little nervous.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Tolby.
And I guess I'll just ask a question. I'm assuming, Mr. Christie, with the benefit of additional time under your belt, that you still want to move forward on this, because, it's not going to happen until next spring. You don't want to put this project off for something else.
I think at least we move forward with this part of the process and get a bids and see, and you still have an option at any time, even after you get the bids, you still have an option of not accepting bids.
Okay.
So I would recommend going forward with it at this point and see.
We'll be in the dark.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird.
Sorry about that, I'm out of order.
Again.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Okay, item number 8, consider approval of the district facility planning process. Hearing officer report.
Just that. You have a report that was generated from the 14th, the afternoon of the 14th, when we actually conducted the formal hearing. We advertised that for in excess of 14 days, and this would be the final approval as it would go in front of KDE for review, and then as we discussed at the last board meeting, in front of the State Department for formal approval, I want to say December 3rd.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tolby, second by Mr. Heisel. Any questions, comments, discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 9, consider approval of allocation to junior achievement in the amount of $2,500. Mr. Christie.
I've been here for 16 years, we've done this every year. It's $2,500 donation to the program. You should have in the letter from them explaining. Since 2005, 2006, we've been doing it.
I'm assuming the elementaries are still pretty happy with the program, so, since it's still on here.
Yes.
Are they able to do anything in the schools right now, or are they kind of stuck like Pi is?
Well, if they do, it's virtual type stuff right now. There's not programs. Now, I'd have to see how they would move forward with this. I can't tell you how much would be virtual, but I would imagine about everything right now that they're doing is virtual. To my knowledge, there's not any schools with anybody coming in. It says in there that it realize it may look different, but they're still prepared to move forward with materials necessary to make students successful.
Move to approve is written.
Motion by Mr. Peardo,
No, second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, did anybody want to take anything off the consent agenda?
Except a couple of comments about number 10, though.
Okay. Number 10. Anything else? Anybody have anything else?
No, I appreciate y'all taking the time to answer my questions, so thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Gordy.
Just looking at students coming in, we said, when we started back here, when the students coming in, looked like we started, we had 1,100, 1,600 this past week, looked like we had 2,600, so looks like we're doing a really great job with that. That 2,600 represents about 63% of what we'll have here for the hybrid, so that's, to me, I think we're right on track of what we were planning and hoping to do with that program there. And the other comment was on the budget. Looks like that we went in there and looked around, found maybe $600,000 in there somewhere to do, which is really good and promising. I appreciate the work that's been done for that. So that's a good sign to see, and just hopefully people will keep working together and look for ways that we can cut into that budget. So I just wanted to throw a couple shout outs there.
All right, if not, or if that's all, then we have a motions for items number 10 through 28.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
Second.
second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Need a motion for number 29, authorized payment of salaries and accounts payable.
Who pays the bills?
Motion by Mr. Perry.
I'll second.
Who was that? Was that you? Motion by Mr. Perry, second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You may want to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson. I'll second.
I wasn't very enthusiastic.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
We spent so much time together, you can miss this.
Motion carries 5-0.
Who's second?
Me. Before